Hello me hearties and welcome to another Heart Skills video. I'm Trinity Hart and this little guy here is Parzival, one of my mini hognose snakes that I have. Today I wanted to show you a little bit about what it's like to keep 24 skilly critters inside your home. You know, everybody's individual experience varies, especially depending on the type of reptile that you keep and the quantity of reptile that you keep. So this is just my experience and isn't meant to be representative of everyone's reptile keeping experience, but I wanted to share it with you and hopefully give you some helpful, informative information along the way. What does it take to keep so many reptiles? In the shell of a nut, I'd have to say patience, perseverance and dedication, never-ending research, a bit of courage, organization, careful hygiene, a good exotic vet near you, as well as time, space, money, and passion. I'm going to talk a bit about a few of these things as I share some of my critters with you and give you some examples along the way. This is not going to be an all-encompassing guide, however. I would like to make more videos on this topic as time goes on, and I have big plans for care guides specifically in the future, both in video form and some other exciting, more tangible ways. But this is not a care guide. However, I do my best to pass on good, educational content in every video that I do, so hopefully you'll still find this helpful and informative. Whenever we get a new reptile, patience is key. We have to wait a few days before feeding them after they have come to our home, so they are less likely to become too stressed to keep down a meal. Then we have to wait at least 2 more days after their first meal to hold them for the first time, so they don't regurgitate from handling too soon after a meal. Then the real test of patience begins, and that is having the endurance and the fortitude to socialize your new animal. Every reptile species is different, and every individual within that species is also different. Some are chill from day one, and others, not so much. Some take a long time to trust you, some learn pretty quick even when they were initially very defensive, and some sort of just never trust you. We also have to practice patience throughout their lives, waiting to hold them until a few days after they've eaten, leaving the more defensive ones alone entirely when they're in shed. And if you're breeders or aspiring breeders like us, waiting for the young ones that come in so small to grow mature enough and big enough to produce babies. There's a lot of patience required with these sensitive little critters, but they're always worth the wait. Something that is key when keeping reptiles is persisting even when something is difficult. These animals are not domesticated, and many on the market are only a few generations away from wild caught. We're learning more and more about reptiles and best husbandry practices for the myriads of different species all the time, and that means something we come up against often is issues that we don't really have good answers for yet. Being willing to take the time and power through such issues is key to successful reptile keeping. Some of the issues I've had to deal with include picky eaters, fasting for months at a time, shyness and defensiveness, disectisis or improper sheds, and other seemingly scary issues that turned out not to be issues at all, like my hognose Tifa becoming wheezy and clicky just before her shed, and we initially thought she somehow got an RI or respiratory infection. Turns out, after speaking to several other hognose keepers in the community, this is actually pretty common, and just like they predicted, she was back to normal right after she finished shedding. With my picky eaters and those who went on for months-long fasts, it took a lot of perseverance for me to keep trying, and we tried everything: braining, sending, brumating, deli-cup method, drop feeding, changing to a smaller enclosure, tweaking the temperature and humidity. These are some of the obstacles you may come across, and probably will come across when owning a reptile. When that's multiplied by 24, you can expect it to happen more and more often. Keeping a cool head and continuing to try different things is going to get you and your pets far. Reptiles typically live a very long time. Leopard geckos typically live anywhere from 10 to 15 years in human care. Western hognose snakes and crested geckos have a lifespan in human care that ranges from 15 to 20 years. Spotted pythons are documented living between 15 to 25 years. The longest known lifespan of a reticulated python in captivity was 32 years old. In the wild, ball pythons are quoted as living to around 10 years, but it's a very different story in captivity for them, too. The Oakland Zoo reported a ball python living to 28 years old, and there are reports of some snakes living upwards of 50. The oldest known snake on record was a pet anaconda named Annie, who lived to be 37. Getting any animal is a commitment, but adopting a pet hamster is not quite the same commitment as buying a pet reticulated python. Going into this, Dex and I knew that we would have most of these animals still well past retirement. We understood the responsibility and decades-long undertaking of getting even one reptile, and decided, apparently, that we were prepared for a life filled with reptiles after that. So this is a big, important part of keeping reptiles, especially a decent collection of them. You have to have a plan. You have to ask yourself, am I in it for the long haul? And be honest with the answer, because some little critter will depend on you to care for them for a long, long time if you say yes. I'm going to end part 1 of keeping 24 reptiles with what I'd argue is the most important aspect of having these animals, and that's research. Most people considering purchasing a pet have heard something along the lines of, do your research, from a well-meaning advice giver, and it's probably heard so often that it starts to lose its weight. Yes, of course, I'll look up care, you might think, and that's an okay start, but the truth is, researching the care of your animal shouldn't stop once you get them. Research should be ongoing throughout the life of your pet, and that is especially true with reptiles. For one, what we know about animal care, anatomy, medical issues, and psychology is constantly changing and growing. What we knew about pet care in the 80s was a drop in the bucket compared to what we know today. Science and technology is advancing, time is marching forward, and with it, so does our experience and our ability to gain and assess knowledge. When I got my first hognose, I thought I knew a lot about snake care, at least enough. But once I got Truffle, my sweet little toffee glow girl, back in January of this year, I set my sights on learning all I could about her and her care. And since then, I've also gotten a leopard gecko, crested geckos, ball python, corn snake, dwarf retic, spotted python, and a lot more hognoses. I have purchased well-reviewed care guides, informational literature, and veterinary biology textbooks, as well as watched tons of videos, read online articles, and spoken to many other keepers and breeders. And I continue to do this because the more I read and listen, the more I realize I still have so much more to learn. I'm not saying that everyone has to go all out like this. You certainly don't have to buy tons of books like I did, but knowing not just the bare bones minimum, such as what are good temperatures and humidity levels for my snake, or what is a good substrate for my leopard gecko, but also how to identify genetic defects, neurological issues, illnesses and parasites, how to assist with shedding and prevent poor sheds, what size of food you should be feeding and how often, how to approach issues like fasting, too much weight gain or not enough, regurgitation or constipation, how to spot respiratory infections, abscesses, or other urgent medical issues as they crop up can all be critical in ensuring your pet gets the proper care it needs in a timely fashion. Also, understanding current husbandry versus old school techniques can be helpful. For an example, the once popular method of taking your snake out of its bin and putting it into a different bin to feed it, we now know is not only completely unnecessary, but can cause the snake to develop bad habits. Or imagine if heat rocks were still widely used, forever putting our snakes at the huge risk of being badly burned, simply because people weren't sharing or looking up information to see whether things like that were even a good idea anymore, or ever. And if you're watching this video right now, I give you props because this counts as research. I have learned so much from simply watching some amazing reptile YouTubers out there like Snake Discovery, Intrepid Exotics, L's Reptiles, Clint's Reptiles, and Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles. That's fun to say. There are also reptile podcasts out there you can listen to like Scaled Success, Colubrid and Colubroid Radio, as well as mine and my friend Susie's new podcast, Heart plus Moon Hogcast, where we talk all about hognose snakes. Some other great resources include things like reptiles.com, the blogs at pangeareptile.com, and joshsfrogs.com, and there's tons more. The key: never stop researching. Dedicate a set amount of time each week or even each month to look into current husbandry for your species of reptile, and don't ever gather all your information from a single source. There are some people who have been working with reptiles for decades who have lots of great information, but may be out of date in some of their methods, and new reptile keepers who have less experience but are well-rounded in their modern information, and may know some things that longtime keepers haven't considered before. There are going to be keepers who specialize in certain information, like those who are also biologists and put a lot of their focus on preventing the spread of pathogens like Cryptosporidia, and there will be breeders who have dedicated their lives to learning the best anatomy and structure and personality of snakes to breed. Everyone in the reptile community has something to offer and a different perspective, so keep learning and never stop updating what you think you already know. Tomorrow is a new day, and advances in husbandry tools and methods are changing all the time. Thank you for watching as always, my fellow reptile lovers. Look out for part 2 of Keeping 24 Reptiles coming out soon, and in the meantime, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Oh crap. Like, subscribe, okay, let's try that again. And in the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and acquire snakes. Bye-bye now.